Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting a brand new manhwa, and honestly this one has everything I love: magic, world building, comedy, and a main character who is already making the whole story incredibly fun to follow. So before you think about clicking away because of the slower character setup, stick around because this series is only going to get crazier from here. In this episode, the comedy and world building kick in right away. We get the clash between an adult monarch's mind and a newborn body, a tense nighttime escape, a look at how mana works in this world, and a chaotic family misunderstanding that only gets better from there. So let's dive in and see how Arthur Leywin starts his journey to greatness, one diaper change at a time. We begin in complete darkness as our protagonist, King Gray, finds himself drifting through what can only be described as the famous light at the end of the tunnel. He never believed those stories from people who claimed they had seen the light after nearly dying, but now he has become one of them. Confused, he desperately tries to remember how he died. The last thing he recalls is standing alone in his room overlooking the city before his body suddenly became heavy as he laid down on his bed. Was he poisoned? Assassinated? As a king, there were countless people who wanted him dead. But before he can think any further, he realizes he can't do anything about it anymore, and he just hopes there isn't a choir of winged babies singing at the end. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by the loud voice of a doctor delivering a baby. "Congratulations, sir and madam, he's a healthy boy." King Gray's inner monologue immediately hits a wall of panic. Was I just given birth to? From the outside world, he hears the voice of his new mother. "Hold him a bit further away, dear, I can't see." Gray mentally realizes, does that mean that the light at the end of the tunnel is the light coming through a woman's? No, that's not important. His mom looks down at him adoringly and says, "He's beautiful." His dad chimes in, "He has your hair." Hearing this, our MC notes, "Wherever I am, I can understand the language. That's a good sign." Looking up at his new mother, he thinks, a bright and gentle smile that permeated a motherly love. "I couldn't help but think to myself how beautiful, how charming she was." His mom smiles and says, "He has your eyes, honey." Gray looks over at his father and analyzes him. With a strong jaw and fiercely sharp brows, I'm sure this man is strict and serious. Suddenly, the dad crosses his arms, breaks character, and begins babbling like a total goofball. "Hi, little Art, I'm your daddy. Can you say Dada?" His mom sighs, "Ray, he was just born." Our MC immediately deadpans internally, "Never mind. My surroundings seem normal enough. Where am I?" Weeks slowly trickled by, and Arthur continues to observe his new life. He notes that while his mother, Alice, was a gentle person, she held the reins tightly in the family. His father, Reynolds, was a dependable and charismatic man if you ignored his occasional childishness. While he was thankful for a loving family, his life was filled with difficulties he wouldn't wish upon his enemies, having little command over his limbs and being unable to control the basic bodily functions that came along with this prison of flesh. He notes that years of mental fortitude honed as a king, and the faint hope that this was all a dream, was the only thing keeping him sane. Hanging in a sling bag on his mother's back as they walk through the market, he realizes the scale of where he has landed. It seemed that I'd been transported to the past in a much more archaic period. Did people usually carry around weapons in the past? I guess I'm supposed to assume those vials of suspicious-looking liquids that they pass off as medicine are being sold legally. Right on cue, a loud street vendor in the market yells out, "Elixirs great for endurance, just 2 coppers." Alice looks down at her baby and gently says, "My little Art must be tired. How about we go head back home now?" The scene shifts back to the house, where our MC is resting in his baby crib, mapping out his strategy. Knowledge is strength. I've assessed my surroundings over the past weeks, and I'm confident that I have a firm grasp on what to expect. Suddenly, his dad bursts into the room, scoops him up, and cheers, "Daddy's home, how's my little man doing?" Reynolds immediately starts throwing baby Arthur high into the air in a playful manner. Alice panics, shouting, "Ray, what are you going to do if you drop him?" Inside Arthur's head, his royal ego is taking a beating. As expected of such a fragile body, to think I would be reduced to this state by a mere toss. But Reynolds just laughs it off. "My father did this when I was younger. Look, dear, I think our little boy is having fun." Reynolds then starts spinning baby Arthur around like a helicopter. Our MC is in a state where he feels like he can puke at any second, mentally cursing his father out. Suddenly, Reynolds accidentally spins him a little too close, and Arthur's tiny baby foot smacks right into a door or object. The room goes dead silent. Arthur bursts into tears from the pain, while Reynolds stands there freezing in terror. He knows he is completely cooked when his wife finds out. Right on cue, Alice storms over, but instead of just yelling, she places her hands gently over Arthur's injured foot. Her hands begin to glow with a warm light as she performs healing magic. She smiles and says, "There, all better." The pain vanishes, leaving Arthur's jaw mentally on the floor. He quickly takes back everything he just thought, realizing just how little he actually understands about this world. Looking back on his past life, Arthur reflects that he was once a king who led armies and faced powerful opponents from across the world. But for all those achievements, nothing has ever made him prouder than this moment, being able to crawl as a baby. Arthur is crawling across the floor, sending his parents into a high-alert panic. Alice shouts, "Ray, make sure he doesn't hit his head on that corner," while Reynolds yells back, "Okay, you block him from getting near that shelf." Suddenly, Arthur bumps straight into an object. His parents instantly melt into a puddle of adoration, squealing, "Look, Art is looking at himself in the mirror." Inside Arthur's head, the royal ego is alive and well. He grins at his reflection and strikes a dramatic pose, thinking, "It's been months and I'm still not used to my new name. As a former king, Art is a little too cute for me. Although looking at myself here, I have to admit that I'm absolutely adorable. Watch out, future ladies, prepare to be heartbroken." Later that night, Alice puts him to bed, gives him a gentle kiss and says, "Sweet dreams, my little Art." The second the door clicks shut, Arthur's eyes snap wide open in the darkness. He throws his blanket to the ground, climbs over the railing, drops to the floor and declares, "Mission start." He slips out of bed thinking, "Now that Alice thinks I've fallen asleep, I have approximately an hour or so before she comes back to check up on me." He peeks around the corner, spots his mother happily doing the dishes, and hits full tactical stealth mode, crawling past the doorway like a secret agent. Destination within reach, full speed ahead. He reaches his target, cracks the door open, and grins, pumping his tiny fist. "Success! Ever since I discovered this place, I've been sneaking in every night to learn more about this world. It's the family library." Arthur pulls down the books and begins decoding the lore of this new land. Dicathan, the continent I had been born in, comprised of 3 major kingdoms. Elenwar, the elven kingdom deep in the forest. Darv, the vast underground kingdom and home of the dwarves. And Sapin, the human kingdom and easily the most populated region. Both this world and my previous one shared a monarch system, but rulership here is passed down rather than earned. I found early on that this world is vastly underdeveloped compared to my old world. But the reason for the lack of technological advancement is because of magic. I think this is where I left off. He flips the page, comparing the mechanics of power. In my old world, we had a life force called Ki used by practitioners to strengthen their bodies and weapons through rigorous training. This world has a similar force called mana. However, unlike Ki, which existed only inside a person, mana is present all around us. The power to control mana is largely genetic. Roughly 1 in 100 children possess it. Suddenly, Arthur pauses, wiggling around because he's having some issues with the diaper he's wearing. Shaking it off, he focuses back on the text. Anyway, mana can be used in various ways. The 2 most common methods are augmenting and conjuring. Augmenters enhance their bodies with mana, allowing them to possess incredible strength, defense, and agility. However, their weakness lies in their limited range. Conjurers emit mana to the outside world, allowing them to bend their surroundings to their will. However, they must supplement their own mana core with mana from the outside world to form a spell. My mother was what they called a deviant. More specifically, an emitter. They are a rare type of mages able to cast unique restorative mana. Then Arthur reads a game-changing piece of information. According to this book, a mage's first awakening happens between early adolescence to late teenage years when their mana core manifests. He realizes the mana core sounds uncannily similar to the Ki center from his past life. To form a Ki center, children were taught to meditate, sense the scattered fragments inside their bodies, and gather them into a single place. Arthur decides he wants to try it out. He sits cross-legged, closes his eyes, and begins gathering mana just like he once gathered Ki. He's ecstatic. It's working, it's whir. Suddenly, a pair of hands scoops him right out of the air, completely interrupting his concentration. It's Alice. She looks at his red, intensely strained face with deep motherly concern and asks, "There you are, Arthur, worrying me like that." Further, she says, "Honey, are you having trouble taking a poop-pie?" Arthur's soul is hit by comedic humiliation. He mentally screams, "Mother, I'm about to begin my journey to become the greatest mage in this world. Do not make me out to be a constipated infant." Alice sniffs the air, smiles, and says, "I guess you didn't have any trouble. Time to change your diaper." As she carries him away, Arthur hangs limply in her arms, completely defeated, thinking, "It turns out that amidst my concentration, I had indeed sold my diaper." The story shifts perspective as we see Alice sitting at her desk, writing directly into her personal diary. It's been a little over 2 years now, yet it still feels like I'm learning more and more about my baby each passing day. I've reached the conclusion that Arthur has to be the most adorable baby in the world. With his little patch of auburn hair and azure eyes that look at me almost intelligently, I know he will get into trouble in the future if I don't become a strict and dependable mother. It's not like I can rely on Ray. I caught him trying to teach our baby how to fight, for goodness sake, and this was when he could barely crawl. She writes onward, detailing Arthur's daily habits. One thing I've noticed is that Arthur absolutely loves going to the small merchant strip in central Ashbur. So rather than shopping for groceries once or twice a week, we go downtown every other day. I'm not spoiling him. It's to have fresh food in the house and for educational purposes. Watching Arthur grow up so quickly, I wonder how he will be when he's older. With Ray as his father, I have no doubt that he'll have an interest in becoming an adventurer, but I can't help but worry. I can only hope he fares better than the naive young teens hoping to make it big as adventurers. Now if only I could do something about his perpetual habit of sneaking into the study. I'm tempted to move his crib into the study, but that's for another day. The scene shifts directly back to Arthur's perspective. 2 full years have flown by since his original journey to the library. He stands by the window, looking out into the yard, reflecting, approximately 2 years have passed since I first made my difficult journey to the study. I've learned a lot since then, but it's been fascinating learning new things every day. He spots his dad standing outside in the center of the yard. Reynolds has been chanting something for over a few minutes, concentrating really hard. Arthur watches closely, wondering, I wonder what sort of magical phenomenon he'll conjure. Suddenly the ground erupts, and stones lift straight into the air, flying around Reynolds. Arthur's jaw completely drops, his baby eyes widening in shock as he witnesses his goofy dad show off what he's capable of. As the stones fly in the air, Reynolds hurls them forward, clearing his target. He turns around, spots Arthur watching from the window, and flashes a huge, confident thumbs up, yelling, "Your daddy is awesome, huh?" Arthur just stands there, making a deadpan face, completely roasting his dad internally. That's it. 3 minutes of your utmost concentration to fling something you can physically throw with less effort. Right on cue, Alice comes in to check on the baby, completely ruining Reynolds' big moment. From inside the room, Arthur watches his dad through the window as she starts to say, "Are you watching your dad?" but then stops mid-sentence, groaning in frustration. Oh, for goodness sake, he ruined the front yard again. Arthur notes this down, expanding his knowledge. I learned fairly early on that my father was an augmenter. I wonder what I'll be when my mana core awakens. Later, Reynolds shifts to intense physical training in the yard. Arthur decides it's time to sneak back inside to hit the books. However, as he turns around, he realizes he is standing at a height, looking down into a ditch. Terrified of heights in this tiny baby body, he tries another way, turning around, sitting down, and carefully hanging one leg over the edge to climb down. Suddenly, Alice spots him. Seeing his eyes are half closed, she smiles and says, "Your eyes are half closed, baby. Looks like someone needs a nap." Arthur desperately protests, yelling, "Mama, books." Alice shakes her head, "Not now, honey. You know it's nap time, maybe after." Realizing he has no choice, Arthur decides to unlock the legendary hidden weapon in a toddler's arsenal. He looks up at her, makes his eyes sparkle, and hits her with a devastating, "Pee-wee's, mama, books." The technique is a critical hit. Alice completely folds. Okay, you can play in the study for a little bit." To save her pride, she instantly turns around and mutters to herself, "I am not a doting mother. Boys his age needs a lot of play, and I baby-proofed the room." Inside Arthur's mind, his royal ego celebrates the victory. It is not demeaning. A great warrior must utilize every weapon in his arsenal. Suddenly crash, a loud noise echoes from outside. Alice gasps, "Oh no, your father better not have knocked down another tree. I'll be right back, Art." With the room completely to himself, Arthur locks in, focusing entirely on his progress. My biggest accomplishment aside from the accumulated knowledge of this world is my progress in forming my mana core. I spent these last 2 years moving the tens of thousands of tiny fragments of mana inside my body and gathering them together near my solar plexus. I can see why it would take until adolescence to form naturally, seeing how slowly these fragments gravitate toward the center of my body. It is an arduous task both for my body and mind, but these 2 years have not gone to waste. Outside, Alice walks over to give a cup of water to Reynolds while he works on lifting and logging the damaged trees. Back in the study, Arthur takes a breath. I'm almost there, just one last piece. Arthur gathers the last mana fragment to complete his core, but the exact microsecond the core snaps into place, boom. A violent explosion of raw energy erupts right inside the house. The shockwave shatters the walls, sending an impact rippling outward. Outside, the blast catches everyone off guard, throwing Alice straight off her feet. In a split second of fatherly protection, Reynolds dives completely over her, using his own body as a shield to absorb the impact directly on his back. The smoke hangs heavy over the shattered ruins of the house. Reynolds rolls over, checking on his wife. "You okay, honey?" But Alice's motherly instincts instantly take over. She looks at the collapsed walls in horror and screams, Art's still in there. Driven by adrenaline, Reynolds dashes straight into the smoke, forcefully smashing through the debris to rescue his toddler. But when the smoke clears, Reynolds instantly freezes, dropping to his knees as his jaw hits the ground in disbelief. Alice rushes in right behind him, frantically crying, "Reynolds, what's wrong?" Reynolds can only stare forward, completely shocked, stuttering, "You've got to be kidding me." He's not even 3, but he's already. Sitting there perfectly untouched after his awakening is baby Arthur. He casually stands up, walks toward his shell-shocked parents, and experiences a massive rush of power. So this is what it feels like to have a monocore. Even the trees look greener. Suddenly he stops mid-sentence, looking around at the shattered roof and the wide-open walls. Trees. Wait a minute, what the hell? Were we attacked? Who dares destroy the home of a king? He is completely oblivious to the fact that he was the culprit. The story then briefly flashes back to show how Arthur reached this point over the past year. Over this past year, along with my mother teaching me how to read and write, I have been learning the basics of mana manipulation and augmentation. At first, since my body was too small to be sparring, we did basic body workouts. It wasn't too long ago when my father finally decided I would be okay to practice with the wooden sword he had got me for my 3rd birthday. We see Reynolds barging into the room with shonen anime dad energy, shouting, "It's time to train, champ. I have your sword, come on, now remember what I taught you. Match the flow of mana with your breathing. Just like your heart or lungs, your core is just another organ." Arthur just deadpans internally, watching his dad. I wonder if most 4-year-olds would understand these abstract instructions. The training sequence begins and Reynolds pushes Arthur hard, testing his limits. "Come on, I think you can do it." Arthur has a completely different dilemma. He doesn't care about the physical sparring. He is on a strict schedule and only has a tiny window of time left before dinner. He thinks, "He's not going to let me rest until I do this, and I only have a little bit of time to study before dinner." With effortless precision, Arthur performs a swift countermaneuver that deflects and disarms his dad's sword, launching it away. Reynolds stands there entirely frozen in shock. Arthur casually looks up with big, innocent baby eyes and asks, "Can I go study now?" A flabbergasted Reynolds can only stutter, "Yeah, sure, Art." Safely back in his room, Arthur treats us to an incredible world-building breakdown of this universe's power system. In this world, strength is measured by the color of your mana core. The mana core starts off black, due to the body's blood and other impurities mixing with the mana particles forming the mana core. The mana core becomes more pure as the impurities are filtered out over time. The order goes as follows: black, red, orange, yellow, silver, and white. Each stage is split into 3 shades: dark, solid, and light. The lighter the mana core, the purer it is and the more power it has. Just as Arthur is plotting his path to magical supremacy, a loud voice shatters his concentration. "Arthur, time for dinner." Our legendary king is brought low by a scheduled mealtime, mentally crying out, "Curses." The scene shifts to the family dinner table, where Arthur internally complains about his toddler lifestyle. "Can't a baby get some alone time around here? How else am I supposed to learn?" But the entire trajectory of his journey shifts when Reynolds turns to Alice with a serious expression and notes, "Honey, I think it's time we get Art a proper mentor." We pick up right in the heat of a chaotic household argument, and the visuals are absolutely hilarious. The scene frames Arthur's mom, Alice, looking like a fierce battlefield commander shouting orders, while an entire imaginary army of angry cartoon carrots charges forward to attack poor Ray, who is standing there like a lone warrior trying to hold his ground. Alice furiously yells that Arthur is only 4 years old and refuses to let her tiny baby leave home to go to some random city located hundreds of miles away. Ray immediately defends himself, completely losing his mind over how ridiculously talented his son is. He passionately argues that keeping the boy in this small town is holding him back because his pure potential is off the charts. He explains that Xyrus isn't just any ordinary town, it's a legendary hub of magic, and promises that an incredibly close friend will personally watch over him. While this absolute storm of an argument rages, our MC Arthur simply sits there with an exhausted sigh while his parents continue arguing. Suddenly, both of them turn toward Arthur, asking a 4-year-old to settle the argument. Realizing he needs to handle this delicately without exposing his inner adult, Art deploys the ultimate weapon, pure, innocent kid logic. He looks up with big eyes and asks, "Can't mommy and daddy just come along so we can all meet the teacher together?" The sudden suggestion completely catches his parents off guard, breaking the heavy tension into loud, joyful laughter. Ray admits they completely overlooked the obvious choice of traveling as a family. With everyone finally on the same page, Ray happily declares that the entire Leywin family is officially packing their bags for Xyrus City. Our scene shifts slightly, and Arthur narrates us that he was completely shocked by how fast his parents moved. immediately starting intense preparations for what would be a grueling 3-week-long journey. His mother walks in and straight up snatches the book from him, telling him to go to sleep immediately because they're leaving incredibly early the next morning. Alice softens up, tucking her little boy into bed, and explains that their old, highly trusted comrades from the Twin Horns adventure party happen to be traveling toward Xyrus as well, so they are tagging along with them for maximum security. Once the lights are out, Arthur stares up at the ceiling, analyzing the tactical situation. He reflects on how the Twin Horns have a highly formidable balanced lineup of conjurers and augmenters. Having a high-tier group like this accompanying them will easily neutralize whatever dangerous monsters or bandit troubles they might encounter. As he prepares to sleep, a wave of genuine excitement hits him. It's officially time to step out into the grand stage and see what this vast fantasy world truly has to offer. The next morning the sun rises, and the family arrives at the meeting spot to link up with the caravan. Ray is in incredibly high spirits, loudly thanking his old friends for letting his family tag along. He proudly tells Art to step up, and Arthur delivers a flawlessly mannered introduction. "Hello, my name is Arthur Leywin. Thank you so much for accompanying us to Xyrus." The crew is introduced, completely blown away by how polite the boy is. First up is Adam Crench, a spear-wielding augmenter who jokingly asks if a meathead like Ray could truly be Art's biological father. Honestly, after seeing how polite Arthur is, everyone starts questioning Reynolds' parenting. Before Art can even answer, Angela Rose, a wind conjurer, swoops in and scoops him up into a massive hug. Arthur instantly regrets being this adorable as Angela squeezes him like a giant stuffed toy, leaving him desperately gasping for air. Fortunately, Durden Walker, a huge but gentle-looking earth conjurer, rescues our dying MC and sets him down. Art internally notes that Durden has the incredibly wholesome energy of a massive, friendly dog. We also meet the quietest member, Jasmine Flamesworth, a dual-dagger augmenter who gives Art a cool, silent nod. And Helen Shard, a friendly magic archer who welcomes him warmly. With all the introductions out of the way, the heavy wheels begin to turn, the horses kick up dust, and the caravan officially starts rolling. After making steady progress through the wilderness, night begins to fall, and the party decides to set up camp. The battle-hardened members quickly hunt down wild animals to clear out any troublesome threats before dark, prepping a hearty dinner over the open flame. Meanwhile, Arthur sits by the fire with an absolutely exhausted expression, feeling the physical toll of traveling in a toddler's body. Helen walks over to comfort him, directly asking if he really managed to awaken his mana core a whole year ago. Before Arthur can even give a proper answer, Adam stands up, stretching his arms. He looks over at Reynolds and says, "Hey Reynolds, I need to do a little stretching before going to sleep. And you told me you've been sparring with your boy. Do you mind if I play around with Art?" Hearing this ridiculous request, Arthur narrows his eyes in pure annoyance. Reynolds proudly agrees to the match, and the imposing fighter wastes no time. He walks right over, lifts Arthur up like a sack of potatoes, and carries him away to the open clearing. The red-headed warrior takes a strong stance with his weapon, asking with a smirk, "Ready, kid? You know how to reinforce your weapon, right, boy genius?" Looking back at his dad, Arthur tries to send desperate, panicked father-son telepathy waves. "Redhead is out for blood, get me out of this mess." But instead of rescuing his son, Reynolds pumps his fist in the air and enthusiastically shouts, "Go get him." Arthur's soul instantly leaves his body. "Yeah, thanks Dad, very supportive." Useless. Realizing he has no choice but to fight his way out, Arthur locks in. He clears his mind and instantly slips into the refined stance he mastered in his previous life before dashing forward. The battle officially begins as Arthur throws out a blindingly fast strike. The fighter barely dodges it, but in the next instant, Arthur completely disappears from his sight and pops up right behind him, leaving the poor guy frozen in shock. But just as Arthur goes for the finishing blow, his tiny baby feet betray him and slip right out from under him. Adam instantly catches the opening and drives his long rod forward like a spear. Arthur slams back with a heavy counter to block it, and the clash of their mana explodes into a massive shockwave across the clearing. The violent impact sends Arthur flying backward through the air. For one glorious second, he experiences temporary flight, and his brain helpfully supplies the classic line, "For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction." Then he crashes straight into the dirt and painfully concludes, "Yeah, that opposite reaction hurt a lot." Before Adam can even start celebrating, Durden marches up behind him and whacks him hard on the head, shouting, "Too hard. Idiot." Adam clutches his skull, points at the crater Arthur just made, and yells at Reynolds, "What kind of hellish training did you put him through to create the little monster?" Alice rushes over and immediately starts healing Arthur. Looking down at him suspiciously, she asks if this is what he's been studying, and Art panics, blurting out the most ridiculous excuse imaginable. Yeah, I learned this by watching Dad and reading some books. Adam just scoffs and says, whatever, you're still going to teach me some of those movement techniques of yours. With no way out, Arthur gives in and explains the mechanics. He patiently breaks down how to cross the back leg over the lead leg and kick off with mana. The party immediately tries to copy him, and things go downhill fast. In the very next moment, Arthur blinks and sees one of the veterans has completely lost control and somehow managed to drive his head straight into a tree trunk, with his legs sticking out of the foliage. Arthur just stares in silence, trying to understand how fully trained adventurers made learning his technique look this incredibly stupid. Several days pass as the group continues their journey. During the long trek, Art's 5th birthday quietly comes and goes right there on the road. He isn't expecting any big celebration, so when Jasmine, the quietest member of the Twin Horns, walks up to him and hands over a gift while muttering "gift" for birthday and lessons, he is completely caught off guard. Later, while the crew washes up at a nearby river, Art reflects on how training has been going. To his surprise, Jasmine has completely blown his expectations away, quickly grasping his instructions and mastering the high-tier footwork technique, the feint step. As the group continues their journey toward the city, Adam chuckles and tells Art that he still remembers how Ray always managed to drag everyone into one ridiculous mess after another. But before he can finish embarrassing Art's dad, Helen jumps in with a mischievous grin, reminding everyone that Adam wasn't exactly innocent either. The moment she starts bringing up one of his own embarrassing moments, Adam instantly panics and blurts out, "Oh no, what was that?" Everyone turns to look outside, only for him to awkwardly add, "Never mind, just a little rodent," in the most obvious attempt to deflect attention. Through all the jokes, Art notices that his mom looks a little pale and tired, though she quickly brushes it off and says she's just a bit exhausted. Hoping to keep up with his studies, Art pulls out his magic books and starts reading. But the peaceful mood doesn't last long. Before he knows it, he's sweating bullets, feeling an absurdly heavy pressure coming from across the seat. He looks up and finds Jasmine staring at him like a predator with wide, unblinking red eyes that practically scream, "Teach me more." The sheer force of her silent thirst for training leaves our reincarnated king completely terrified. Arthur quickly buries his face back into his book, pretending he didn't notice, and silently prays the ride ends soon. Then, without warning, the whole carriage jerks violently on the road. Outside, someone shouts a warning, "Bandits, prepare to engage." Before a single arrow can hit the cart, Helen springs into action and begins chanting defensive magic, gathering the wind around them. A moment later, a wind barrier snaps into place around the carriage, effortlessly knocking away a volley of lethal arrows. Once they realize they're under attack, the entire squad, including Reynolds, draws their weapons and charges straight into the chaos. From the safety of the carriage, Art peeks out and instantly realizes just how bad things are. He grits his teeth and thinks, damn it, they're completely surrounded. The view shifts to a massive, well-organized bandit force perched on the high ridges around the road, bows fully drawn and aimed at the Twin Horns. This isn't some random group of petty thieves. This is a coordinated ambush. Then the leader steps out from the shadows. After seeing their defensive barrier and the warriors rushing out to fight, he just chuckles and barks out a chilling order to his men. "Pretty good catch, boys. Leave only the women and kid alive and try not to leave scars. After all, damaged goods will only sell for less." With the horrifying realization that these aren't just bandits, but slave traders trying to capture them alive, the stage is officially set for an absolute bloodbath. Hearing his family referred to as mere cargo instantly snaps something deep inside Arthur. His face completely darkens, his eyes narrowing into a terrifyingly intense scowl as he internally fumes. "It seems I've been living in a bubble for too long. I almost forgot that every world has its own share of filth like him." Furious, Art prepares to completely abandon his facade and unleash his hidden powers on the battlefield. But before he can take a single step, his mother Alice suddenly pulls him into a tight, desperate embrace. Holding him close, she whispers, "Don't worry, I'm here." Just like that, the sheer warmth of a mother's love completely melts away the cold, murderous wrath of the warrior king inside him, reminding him of what he truly needs to protect. Outside the carriage, absolute chaos erupts. The bandit archers waste no time and unleash a heavy volley of arrows right toward the travelers. Acting instantly, Durden Walker, the Twin Horns' formidable earth magic user, steps up to the plate. He slams his staff down, chanting a defensive spell that causes the ground to fracture and violently erupt, raising a massive, solid earth wall to shield their main cart. Simultaneously, two stray arrows manage to bypass the defense, hurtling straight toward Arthur and his vulnerable mother. But before disaster can strike, Angela Rose intercepts them, flawlessly casting a wind spell that effortlessly deflects the lethal projectiles away. With the initial volley taken care of, Arthur's dad, Ray, leads the counterattack. Ray charges headfirst into the fray alongside the twin horns, swinging his weapon and literally crushing the oncoming bandits like they are nothing more than standard carrots. The team fights with flawless synergy, perfectly covering each other's blind spots. As the skirmish spreads across the rocky terrain, the scene shifts to focus on Jasmine, who finds herself locked in a duel against a genuinely twisted opponent. This bandit utilizes a long, unpredictable whip as his primary weapon, swinging it wildly while shouting disgusting taunts. "Stop struggling, baby. I'll make sure to train you so well you'll be begging to stay with me in the end." Jasmine relies on her elite agility, executing tight dodges to evade the whipping strikes, but she is noticeably struggling to close the distance. Watching from the sidelines, Art's tactical mind immediately recognizes the danger. He is analyzing the matchup. She's at a disadvantage against her opponent's range. But can I help? A fighter is one thing. But do I have a chance against an adult augmenter with this body? Before he can even formulate a plan, a body is suddenly sent flying through the air, crashing violently right into their wooden cart. The sudden heavy impact leaves everyone in absolute shock. But the real horror sets in when the dust clears and they see exactly who took the hit. It's none other than Arthur's dad, Ray, who has been brutally battered by the powerful leader of the bandits. Seeing his father heavily injured, Art panics, urgently screaming at his mother to hurry up and cast her healing magic. However, the sheer trauma and terror of the war zone completely paralyzes Alice. She begins trembling uncontrollably, tears streaming down her face as the shock prevents her from properly channeling her mana. Coughing up blood but remaining incredibly brave, Ray looks up and reassures his terrified wife, wheezing out, "I'm fine, honey. My injuries aren't life-threatening. Don't worry and do your best." Turning his attention to his son, Ray's expression turns incredibly solemn. He looks Art dead in the eye and commands, "Art, listen carefully. After your mother uses her healing spell, those bad men are going to go after her. I'll be able to fend off the leader, but not if I have to worry about protecting you too. Take your mother back down the trail we came from and don't stop." Furious at the thought of abandoning his family, Arthur fires back with absolute confidence, yelling, "What are you talking about, Dad? I'm not leaving you. I can fight. You saw me." But Ray firmly places a hand on his son's shoulder, using his full government name to command absolute authority. "Listen to me, Arthur Leywin. I know you can fight. That's why I'm entrusting your mother to you. Protect her." We open on a brief emotional shift in perspective as we look back at a quiet moment right before the chaos. Art noticed his mother looking incredibly pale and exhausted, prompting him to ask if she was all right. She offered a tired but loving reassurance. "Just a little tired, honey. I'll be okay." However, the true reality of the situation hits our young prodigy immediately after. His father pulls him aside to reveal a massive, life-changing secret. His mother is actually pregnant. Ray admits he wanted to wait until they arrived safely in Zyra City to share the news, but the sudden danger forced his hand. With the shocking realization that he has an unborn sibling to protect, a fierce determination ignites inside our tiny Arthur. He grips his father's arm tightly and makes a solemn vow, "I'll protect Mom." Back on the battlefield, the tactical landscape shifts dramatically as Ray assesses the enemy forces with growing dread, shouting out a crucial warning, "They've got 4 mages on their side." At the exact same time, the ruthless bandit leader spots Alice rushing to assist the fighters and completely panics, realizing exactly who she is. He commands his forces, "They have a healer, don't let her get away." Recognizing that his pregnant mother is now the primary target of an organized ambush, Arthur takes matters into his own hands. Forcefully pulling his mom away from the line of fire, he urges her to run, while mentally sending a desperate prayer back toward the front line. "Don't die on me, Dad." As Arthur and his mother attempt to escape the immediate crossfire, the danger escalates instantly. A rogue bandit breaks past the defense, charging directly toward them with lethal intent. Fortunately, Adam spots the threat just in time and executes a powerful, high-speed interception, throwing himself into a brutal clash to hold the enemy back while screaming, "I'll hold him down, get out of here." But the reprieve is entirely short-lived. A split second later, a hidden sniper lets loose a lethal arrow flying straight toward Arthur and his mother. Showing reflexes that absolutely defy the body of a toddler, Art tracks the projectile, drawing a simple wooden training sword to deflect the incoming strike. The impact is so intense that the wooden blade violently snaps in two, but Arthur's precise martial forms allow him to completely dodge the deadly projectile. Even the attacking bandit is left frozen in absolute shock, stammering, "How the hell did he?" before he can even finish his sentence. A perfectly placed counter arrow from Helen strikes him directly in the head, shutting him down instantly. Despite surviving the initial wave, Arthur's hyperanalytical mind instantly senses a fatal flaw in the flow of battle. He quickly scans the field, keeping a precise mental tally of the active threats. One mage is currently locked in a fierce magical duel with Angela, a second is trading blows with the red-haired fighter, and the third, the bandit leader himself, is engaged with Helen and Ray. Suddenly, the bandit leader roars out a desperate, commanding order across the canyon. "Forget the plan, Damien, don't let them live." The realization hits Arthur like a physical blow. His eyes widen in pure panic as he thinks to himself, who is he talking to? The missing fourth mage has been lying in wait the entire time, perfectly positioned to execute a fatal flank. Before anyone can react, the hidden fourth mage reveals himself, rapidly casting a high-tier water spell and unleashing a devastating torrent of pressurized water directly aimed at Arthur and his pregnant mother. Arthur's tactical mind calculates the trajectory in less than a millisecond, and the math yields a terrifying result. Even if I can use mana to dodge this, Mom won't be fast enough to. With absolutely no time left to formulate a grand strategy, our reincarnated king embraces a dark, selfless resolution. Pushing his mother violently out of the blast radius, he mentally apologizes for the rough treatment, knowing the alternative is far worse. As the ground gives way beneath him and he begins falling backward over the steep cliffside, Arthur locks eyes with the enemy caster, declaring his final intent. "I knew that if I couldn't make it, I wanted to bring the mage down with me." Channeling his remaining mana, he whips out a reinforced mana string, perfectly wrapping it around the mage's leg and dragging the terrified spellcaster down into the abyss along with him. The scene transitions into a heartbreaking slow-motion sequence as little Arthur plummets down the rocky chasm. Looking back up at the ridge one final time, a peaceful, tragic smile crosses his tiny face as he finds comfort in the success of his gambit, thinking, "Looks like everyone else will be okay." But as the wind rushes past him and the reality of his impending demise sinks in, the stoic composure of a former warrior king completely shatters. The emotional weight of the toddler body takes over and tears begin streaming down Arthur's face. In a deeply vulnerable, devastating final thought, he cries out against the cruel irony of his fate. "Damn, I always wanted to be an older brother." The narrative suddenly shifts gears entirely, taking a deep dive into Arthur's mysterious past life. Before he was a young magical prodigy in this new world, he was known across the realm as King Grey. We see him standing in a quiet, grand room adorned with framed portraits, silently reflecting on the heavy legacy left behind by the pictures hanging on the wall. The first picture reveals the council, the true governing body that managed the country's intricate politics and economy. The second picture brings us face to face with King Grey himself, accompanied by a sobering realization. In a resource-depleted world suffering from rapidly declining birth rates, large-scale wars were completely replaced by formal duels, and entire armies were replaced by single, powerful kings. Arthur grimly recalls, "I was one of them." Breaking the silence, an elderly council worker named Marlorn approaches the king, observing him closely. "Admiring your handiwork, I see. While being part of the council is rewarding, I won't lie and say I'm not envious of the fame and glory you kings receive upon victories. Anyway, to what do I owe the pleasure of this unexpected visit?" Without saying a word, King Grey reaches up to his neck, unclasps his heavy royal medal and firmly places it onto the desk. With a cold look he states, "I'm retiring, Marlorn," before walking out the door. As he departs, his internal thoughts reveal the tragic emptiness of his past life. He spent his entire existence pushing himself to become the strongest warrior alive, but for what? Fame? Glory? In the end, he remained a lonely orphan with every single person he ever truly cherished completely gone. Talk about a depressing retirement plan. Arthur's memories flash back to a warmer time, the night spent camping around the crackling fire with his family and the Twin Horns adventure party. A deep wave of regret washes over him as he thinks, "I'd give up everything I had in that life for the chance to go back to Ashbur and see them all again." Slowly, his eyes flutter open to the harsh reality of the present. Weakly, he mutters the universal questions of a survivor. Where am I? How am I still alive? As his vision clears, his eyes land directly on the corpse of the bandit who had dragged him along. The brutal sight of the completely lifeless body instantly triggers his weak physical state, causing him to violently puke onto the grass. Not exactly the glamorous awakening of a legendary hero. Struggling to move his battered toddler body, Art spots the deceased bandit's supply bag. Crawling over, he discovers a small stash of food, pills, and fresh water. Desperate for sustenance, he eats the fruit, downs the water, and mutters a quiet, "Thanks for the meal," before immediately collapsing back into a deep, exhausted sleep. The scene transitions to the next morning, marked by the peaceful sound of birds chirping through the dense forest canopy. Art opens his eyes, immediately trying to push himself off the ground, but his weak muscles refuse to cooperate. Realizing his physical limitations, he centers his mind and focuses entirely on stimulating his internal mana core to force strength back into his limbs. With a surge of energy, he successfully forces himself onto his own 2 feet. He carefully loots the dagger and the supply bag from the bandit's corpse, looking around the unfamiliar wilderness in absolute disbelief. "I survived that, how long has it been, and where am I?" he asks himself, Shaking his head to clear the doubt, he resolves, "It doesn't matter, I have to move on." But just as he prepares to take his first steps into the unknown, a sudden echoing voice pierces the quiet forest. "Oi, you're awake." Completely caught off guard, our tiny MC instantly freezes in absolute shock. Who on earth just caught him red-handed in the middle of the woods? He instantly dives behind the nearest tree, pressing his back against the bark as his eyes dart over to the dead bandit lying on the grass. Panicking, Art internally yells, "Don't tell me the corpse is talking." Arthur has officially unlocked a brand new fear, talking corpses. Before he can process the absurd situation, the voice speaks up again. "How is your body?" Clutching his chest, Arthur's sweat drops, praying to whatever higher power is listening. "I swear to God, if it gets up." Reading his mind, the mysterious voice chuckles softly. "Don't worry, the corpse won't be reanimating if that's what you're afraid of." Hearing this, Arthur lets out a long, heavy sigh of relief, leaning against the tree. But a split second later, his battle instincts kick back in. He facepalms internally, realizing, wait, don't just trust this unknown voice no matter how silky smooth and dignified it sounds. Re-engaging his combat stance, Art unsheathes his dagger, pointing it directly toward the direction of the sound and demanding, "Who are you? Are you the one that saved me?" The voice replies with absolute composure, "Yes, to your second question. As for the first, you'll find out once you arrive at my dwelling." Arthur narrows his eyes, scoffing with a competitive smirk. "You sound pretty confident that I'll even try to find you." Without missing a beat, the voice drops a massive truth bomb. "Well, I am the only one that will be able to get you home from this place." That single word, home, strikes Arthur like a bolt of lightning. Images of his life instantly rush through his mind: Ray, Alice, the twin horns, and his unborn baby sibling. Anxiety grips his heart as he wonders if his family survived the slave trader ambush and made it safely to Zyra City. Abandoning all his tough guy attitude, Art immediately changes his tone, switching to maximum politeness. "Mr. Voice, may I inconvenience you for directions so that you may grace me with your presence?" The voice giggles, amused by his quick shift. "You catch on quick, Arthur Leywin, although it's a bit rude to refer to a lady as Mr. But your sentiment is there, so yes." Arthur freezes in place, his mind racing. "Wait, how does she even know my name?" Before he can ask, the lady interrupts, "I'll show you." Suddenly, Arthur's eyes glow a faint red, instantly revealing the precise direction and path leading straight toward her location. She advises him, "I'd recommend leaving while it's still daylight. Traveling here after dark is a terrible idea." As Arthur begins his trek through the woods, his physical body gradually recovers, leaving him with only a few minor aches by the afternoon. However, his hyperanalytical mind can't stop spinning. He ponders the impossible nature of his survival. What kind of high-tier magic did she use to save him from a fatal plummet? How did she even know he was falling in the first place? And why did she save only him while leaving the bandit mage behind? Suddenly, the soothing sound of rushing water interrupts his thoughts. Sprinting toward the noise, Art gasps, "Jackpot, it's actually a river," the first luxury after surviving a cliff, a proper bath. After days of blood, dirt, and surviving a terrifying drop, Art wastes absolutely no time, strips off his filthy clothes, and dives straight into the river. Just as he's enjoying his relaxing swim, the lady's voice echoes directly into his mind once again. "How pleasantly carefree. Don't worry, there isn't much to see." Oof, emotional damage. The poor guy just got roasted by someone he hasn't even met yet. Arthur twitches, desperately repeating his internal mantra. "They are just words, Arthur. A king must remain calm and unfazed." The lady playfully apologizes. "I apologize for startling you, don't pout." Hiding his embarrassment, Arthur mutters a classic line of denial. "This body is just undeveloped, that's all." After wrapping up his bath, Arthur fills his water bag, grabs a quick bite of fruit from his supplies, and continues heading in the direction of the glowing red marker. Looking up at the evening sky, he begins analyzing his geographic location. Given that he fell off the mountain ridge toward the east, Art calculates that he must be somewhere near the borders of the elves' domain. However, he notices something weird. The trademark thick enchanted fog that usually blankets the forest of Elshire is completely absent. Furthermore, while he initially feared landing in the deadly beast glades, he notices that only small, harmless animals are roaming around. What puzzles him most is the sheer density of environmental mana in the air. This region is overflowing with pure, rich mana, yet strangely, there isn't a single aggressive mana beast in sight. While Art bitterly regrets that he can't stop to absorb this incredible mana to strengthen his core, he knows he has to keep moving. With his mother pregnant, the sheer mental trauma and grief of thinking her son is dead could endanger the baby. He has to get back to his family as fast as humanly possible, assuming they are still alive. As dusk settles over the canopy, Arthur finally arrives at the exact coordinates highlighted by the glowing red marker. The mysterious lady's voice greets him warmly. "I'm glad you were able to make it here safely." Looking around the desolate, rocky clearing, Art tilts his head in total confusion, seeing nothing but massive boulders. It's nice to meet you. The voice chuckles at his confusion. As interesting as it would be, I am not a sentient cluster of rocks. You will find me within the crevice. Arthur steps forward, spotting a dark, narrow opening splitting through the side of a massive stone wall. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, our tiny MC looks into the darkness. Thinking of his family one last time, he mentally vows, "Dad, Mom, I'll be home soon." With renewed determination, Arthur steps into the cavern to meet his mysterious savior face to face. We pick up right as Arthur begins making his way inside the dark, narrow rock crevice. As he steps forward, the mysterious lady's voice suddenly warns, "Watch your step." Before Art can even process the warning, the ground directly beneath his feet violently cracks. He plummets straight down through the darkness, hitting the hard stone floor with a loud crash. Dazed and groggy, Arthur pushes himself up and brushes the dirt off his pants, internally complaining, "A warning that I was going to drop 2 stories down would have been nice." Yeah, mentioning the giant hole before he stepped on it would have been greatly appreciated. However, as he stands up and looks across the cavern, the casual annoyance completely vanishes. Arthur freezes dead in his tracks. Standing directly before him is a terrifying, massive creature clad in intimidating dark armor. The sight is so overwhelming and horrifying that our reincarnated king's legs completely buckle, sending him falling right back onto his hands. He is so utterly paralyzed with fear that he can't even force a single sound out of his throat, internally stammering in absolute terror. "What is that?" The terrifying beast steps toward the trembling toddler, speaking in that same dignified, familiar voice. "We finally meet, child." Seeing Arthur frozen with his jaw hanging open, the creature dryly jokes, "Bugs will fly into your mouth if you keep it open that wide." Imagine getting roasted within 5 seconds of meeting someone. Even giant mythical creatures have enough time to deliver jokes. Realizing the terrifying monster is actually the smooth-voiced savior from earlier, Art quickly snaps his mouth shut. The entity continues, explaining the situation. "It'll take some time for me to open a dimensional rift strong enough to transport you home. There are special plants that will be able to nourish you until then." Gaining back a fraction of his composure, Arthur pushes himself back up onto his feet and politely thanks his savior. He wanders over to a nearby cluster of glowing fantasy plants, examining one of the fruits and thinking, "This looks okay." Looking down at his reflection in the smooth skin of the fruit, memories of his loving parents, Ray and Alice, instantly flash across his mind. Just as he's lost in thought, the creature's deep voice suddenly booms right behind him. "That one tastes better." Startled out of his skin, Arthur jumps, splatting the fruit right onto the floor. "Congratulations, Art, you successfully speedran the process of dropping your lunch." Recovering from his jump scare, he picks up the recommended fruit instead, takes a bite, and cautiously sits down next to the towering creature. Looking up, Art asks, "I know you told me you were a lady, but is there a better way I can address you?" The creature looks down and answers softly, "My name is Sylvia." Arthur repeats her name quietly, "Sylvia, do you mind if I ask a few questions?" Sylvia rests her massive form, replying gently, "Go ahead, little one, although I may not be able to answer everything." With his initial terror gradually melting away, Arthur seizes the opportunity to get answers to all the burning questions that have been racing through his mind since waking up. Where was this mysterious place? Why was she living here all alone? Where did she originate from? How did she sustain that massive, festering wound on her body? And above all, why did she save his life? Sylvia answers with quiet grace, "Your first question is easy enough. This place is a narrow zone that rests between the Beast Glades and the Forest of Elshire. No one knows of this place because I've been warding off anyone who comes close, although those cases are rare in the first place. You, Arthur, are the first to enter into this domain." Feeling a sense of mutual respect building, Art offers a gentle correction. "You can call me Art, my family calls me Art, it's short for Arthur." Sylvia nods softly, "Very well, I shall also call you Art." Addressing his remaining questions, Sylvia's tone turns somber. "As for your second question, I am here alone simply because I have no one left to be with. I have many enemies that desperately wish for something that I have. My last battle with my enemies before I was able to escape left me with this wound." She looks down at the tiny toddler, her expression softening. "As for why I saved you, perhaps I was moved by your courage and sacrifice. Or perhaps I had simply grown lonely. Even I don't fully understand why. My apologies, Art, but I will excuse myself for the night. My wound festers, and I must be in good condition when I work on the dimensional rift tomorrow." Arthur nods respectfully. "Okay, good night, Sylvia." Watching the fearsome, armor-clad figure retreat deeper into the cave, Art can't help but feel a deep pang of empathy in his chest, realizing just how heartbreakingly lonely Sylvia truly is. Just as Sylvia is about to step into the darkness of her sleeping quarters, she suddenly pauses, turning her head back toward the young boy. "I almost forgot. My sight is unable to reach exactly where they have gone, but your family and friends are safe, just in case you weren't sure." Hearing those 5 words, "your family and friends are safe," the heavy, suffocating anxiety that had been crushing Arthur's chest since his fall completely shatters. The stoic facade of the reincarnated warrior king entirely breaks down. Tears burst from Art's eyes as he collapses, weeping uncontrollably onto the cavern floor. Through his heavy sobs, he stammers out another desperate, heartfelt thank you to Sylvia. They weren't tears of sadness or pain, they were pure, unadulterated tears of relief, knowing that his mother, his father, and his unborn baby sibling were alive and well. Pick up over a period of several weeks, as hours bleed into days and days bleed into weeks. Whenever Sylvia isn't channeling her magic to build the dimensional portal, she and Arthur spend every single moment in each other's company, talking about all sorts of topics. Though Sylvia remains quiet about her own mysterious origin, Art slowly grows to understand the true nature of his savior. Reflecting on their time together, Arthur notes that Sylvia is the absolute living embodiment of the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover." Despite her nightmare-inducing, armored monster appearance, she is deeply kind, gentle, patient, and warm. Handing Art a glowing piece of fruit, she softly offers, "Have you had a chance to dine yet, Art? These fruits are particularly savory and rarely grow elsewhere." Arthur probably wasn't expecting dragon cuisine to taste this good. Taking the fruit, Art internally smiles, comparing her to his own mother. She is gentle and loving, yet firmly scolds him whenever he steps out of line, a lesson he learns the hard way. While sitting together, Art's face suddenly darkens as a wave of intense fury washes over him. Remembering the slave traders who ambushed his family, his eyes narrow in murderous rage. Those bandits deserved worse deaths, if any of them made it out alive. I'm going to hunt every single one of them down. Before he can finish his vengeful rant, Sylvia suddenly reaches out her massive hand and delivers a sharp flick right to Arthur's forehead. The sudden force sends our tiny MC tumbling backward onto the floor. Rubbing his throbbing forehead, Art yells in confusion, "What was that for?" Sylvia looks down at him, her voice filled with deep wisdom. "Art, perhaps you are not wrong in that those bandits deserve death. I chose not to save the mage you fell with for the same reason. However, letting your heart cloud with hatred and vengeance like this will only cause harm to yourself." She continues with a gentle, motherly warmth. "Instead, continue on proudly with your life with your gaze forward. You will come across misfortunes again, but don't let grief and rage corrode your mind. Learn from them and face the future with a smile. Only then will you truly be victorious. Did I flick you too hard? Does it still hurt, Art?" Emotional damage and physical damage. Hearing a figure that looks like the epitome of evil preach such profound moral wisdom strikes Arthur deeply to his core. He freezes, lost in thought, until Sylvia snaps him back to reality, asking why he isn't eating his fruit. Flustered, Art stammers out, "No, I'm fine." As Art looks closer at Sylvia, he suddenly notices something horrifying. The massive, festering wound on her side has visibly worsened. Alarmed, Art shouts, "Sylvia, your wound, it looks like it's getting worse." Sylvia softly reassures him, brushing it off. "Do not worry, little one, this wound festers from time to time." Changing the subject, Sylvia raises a curious question. "Also, I've been meaning to ask. It was to my understanding that humans usually awaken around the age of 12 or 13. How have you formed your mana core, already able to utilize mana more efficiently than many full-fledged mages?" Puffing out his tiny chest with pride, Art proudly boasts, "My parents said I'm a genius." Bro really used parental approval as scientific evidence, the confidence level, 100 out of 10. Sylvia chuckles softly, replying, "Then perhaps you will be able to learn it." Intrigued, Art asks, "Learn what?" Sylvia begins gathering a radiant, swirling aura of pure mana around her body, explaining, "To meditate and absorb mana while moving, and perhaps while fighting if you're good enough." Arthur's eyes completely light up in absolute fascination. Blushing at the breathtaking display of mana control, he gasps, "How are you doing that?" Sylvia explains, "Humans have a very linear mindset in regards to mana. Just start with small, mindless movements and work your way up from there." Taking up the challenge, Arthur immediately begins practicing. However, trying to draw external mana into his core while constantly shifting his physical body proves to be an absolute nightmare. Collapsing onto the dirt after multiple failed attempts, Art groans, "Easier said than done." Turns out mastering dragon-level techniques isn't exactly a weekend project. Sylvia offers encouragement, pointing out the physiological difference. Mana beasts learn to do this naturally, but since humans usually awaken much later, their bodies aren't able to do this sort of multitasking. Considering the latter fact doesn't apply to you, if you practice hard enough you should be able to succeed. Driven by her faith in him, Arthur grips his wooden stick with renewed focus, declaring, "I'll do my best." Over the following days, while Sylvia drains her remaining strength to construct the dimensional portal, Arthur pushes his toddler body to the absolute brink. To fully master this skill meant being able to engage in high-tier combat while maintaining a continuous inward flow of mana to replenish his core. Step by step, fall after fall, Art refines his focus. He grips his wooden stick, flows into a martial stance and swings, successfully channeling and drawing mana mid-strike. Finally, after who knows how many faceplints, the grueling training actually paid off. Overjoyed by his massive breakthrough, Arthur turns around with a wide, triumphant grin, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Sylvia, I did it." But the excitement instantly evaporates into absolute horror. As Arthur turns toward the center of the cavern, the panel shifts to reveal a nightmare scenario. Sylvia's massive body is collapsed motionless on the stone floor, surrounded by a horrifying pool of dark crimson blood that is spread across the entire cavern. Arthur's eyes widen in sheer, paralyzed shock as his brain struggles to process the terrible sight before him. He sprints across the cavern floor, shouting her name in pure panic, "Sylvia, what happened?" Arriving at her massive form, Art stands directly in her pool of blood, his tiny feet completely drenched in dark crimson. Desperate for answers, he channels his mana to help turn her heavy body over, looking at her side in total horror. "Your wound, why is it getting worse so quickly?" Looking past her toward the glowing dimensional portal, the painful reality suddenly hits Arthur like a physical blow. Flashbacks of every warm, peaceful moment they shared over the past few weeks flash through his mind as he drops to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "That's why. It's getting worse because she's creating the portal. She did it all because of me." Seeing the tiny boy weeping uncontrollably, Sylvia softly speaks up, still alive. "It's okay, little one." Arthur chokes out through his heavy sobs, "How can it be fine when you're dying for me?" Reflecting on this devastating moment, Arthur narrates with raw vulnerability. I cried for longer than I care to admit, and I cried for the first time like the child I was on the outside." As time passes, Sylvia gently asks, "Have you calmed down a little, Art?" Arthur snuffles, shaking his head, "No." Sylvia's voice turns solemn. "We don't have much time left together, and I'd hate for it to be wasted with you blaming yourself over this." "How can I not blame myself?" Art yells back, his chest heaving. "You're basically sacrificing yourself so that I can meet my family." Sylvia offers a warm, gentle response to ease his heavy guilt. "You're doing me a favor by allowing me to leave this forsaken cave a bit faster." Hearing her frame her own sacrifice as a favor causes Art to sob even harder. Shifting the mood, Sylvia softly murmurs, "My name, it really doesn't suit this form, now does it?" Suddenly, her dark, monstrous skin begins to crack and fall away. Luminous white feathers and majestic wings begin to sprout from her body as a blinding light fills the cavern. Arthur watches in utter, jaw-dropping shock as her terrifying armored monster shell completely vanishes, revealing her majestic, divine true form. Looking down at the stunned toddler, she asks with a gentle smile, "There now, do I look a bit more like a Sylvia?" Arthur stammers in complete disbelief, "Sylvia, you're a dragon." Suddenly, everything clicked in Art's mind. The terrifying creature he had feared upon first waking up in the crevice had actually been a legendary dragon all along. Sylvia chuckles softly, "Yes, I suppose I am what you humans refer to as a dragon. But we have little time for idle chatter now that I'm in this form. I must use my original form in order to finish this portal. But now that my veil is gone, they will soon be coming." Arthur's eyes narrow. "They, who's coming?" Ignoring the question to focus on their remaining seconds, Sylvia opens the dimensional portal, turning to him with urgency. "Listen carefully, Art. There are a few things I must say before we part ways." Reaching out, Sylvia hands Arthur a beautiful, shimmering egg covered in multiple colors. As Art wraps his tiny hands around it, he internally notes, "It's not heavy, yet I feel like I can barely hold on to it." Sylvia then plucks a glowing feather from her own wing, handing it to him. "Wrap it in this to conceal its aura. And please bear with me for one more thing." Sylvia gently bumps her snout against Arthur's forehead and mouth. In an instant, a strange surge of ancient magic rushes through Art's body, causing his hands and skin to briefly transform and glow with draconic runes. Sylvia reassures him, "With this, everything will reveal itself when the time comes." Looking up, Arthur notices something horrifying. Sylvia's radiant dragon eyes are beginning to fade and lose their sight. Panicking, Art asks, Sylvia, your eyes. Are you okay? Sylvia quickly shifts focus. I'll open the portal now. I didn't have time to make it go directly to your home, but you should arrive somewhere near humans. Hurry. Arthur steps back, his heart aching. Just like that, I'm leaving you. Before she can answer, the entire cavern violently shakes as heavy stone ceiling stalactites begin crashing down. Sylvia instantly uses her massive white wings to shield Arthur, deflecting the falling debris away. Suddenly, a cold, terrifying voice echoes from the shadows of the collapsing cavern. Lady Sylvia, I advise you cease your stubbornness and hand it over. Submit now, and perhaps he may even heal your wound. Peeking out from beneath Sylvia's protective feathers, Arthur catches a glimpse of the intruder standing in the dust. Internalizing pure terror, Art thinks, he looks similar to Sylvia's previous form. The dark, monstrous figure steps forward, sneering, You've already caused us quite the trouble after hiding. Knowing time has officially run out, Sylvia casts a powerful spell, creating a localized time and space barrier around herself and Arthur where the entire world stops frozen in place. Looking down at Art with immense tenderness, Sylvia makes a quiet confession. I have a bit of a confession to make, Arthur. Truth be told, I intentionally prolonged the transportation spell so that I could spend more time with you. Arthur's throat tightens, the tears threatening to spill over all over again as he realizes how deeply she truly cared for him. Sylvia continues softly, I won't ask you to forgive me, but I do have one more selfish request. Can you call me Grandma just this once? Arthur, on the absolute verge of breaking down, desperately grabs onto her feathers, refusing to accept this parting. No, just come with me. I don't know what you did, but everything is frozen right now. We can leave here together. Sylvia looks down at him, tears welling up in her own ancient dragon eyes as she replies, You know I can't. With one final, tragic smile, Sylvia softly whispers, Farewell, Art, and gently pushes him backward into the swirling dimensional portal. As his body plummets into the rift, Arthur desperately reaches toward Sylvia as the portal pulls him farther and farther away, crying out with his entire heart, Grandma. Standing alone in the frozen cave, Sylvia hears his final cry, smiling through her tears as she whispers her last words, Thank you. We pick up right after Arthur emerges from the dimensional portal and collapses onto the forest floor. Clutching the dirt, his face twists in pure grief and rage as the agonizing reality sinks in. She's gone. I'll never have the chance to see her again. Screaming and sobbing at the top of his lungs, Arthur lets all his raw pain spill out into the silent woods. The scene shifts to the next morning, where Art sits alone, quietly processing everything as the morning sun filters through the canopy. Reflecting on his lost mentor, Arthur narrates with profound sadness. My mind swam with memories of the near 4 months I had spent with Sylvia. For a time that seemed both long and short, Sylvia had treated me like her own blood, teaching me the things that I had lacked since coming to this world. Suddenly, a strange aching sensation hums directly from Arthur's chest. Flustered and confused, Art presses his hand over his heart as a familiar, clear voice echoes inside his mind. Testing, testing, good, hello, Art. Arthur's eyes widen in shock as he stammers, Sylvia, are you? Sylvia's recorded message continues warmly. This is Sylvia. If you're listening to this right now, it means I have shown you what I actually am. Realization hits our young Arthur as he internally notes, I guess Sylvia managed to leave me a message earlier. Sylvia's voice turns solemn. As frustrating as it may seem, you're nowhere near ready for the whole truth. Your body is that of a boy that has barely passed 4, and while your mana core has already progressed to the dark red stage, you're not strong enough. As a small parting gift, I have infused my unique will onto you. Your future development as a mage will depend on how well you're able to use my gift. Hearing this, Arthur internally winces, thinking, who asked for this gift I'd rather have? He stops himself, unable to say out loud that he'd rather just have her by his side. Sylvia's tone softens with deep motherly affection. Oh, and Art, I can imagine what you may be feeling right now. Sorrow, anger, guilt. But remember that you have a family to look out for and a purpose to fulfill in this life. My only wish for you is to embrace the joys and innocence of childhood, and become a man of which both your parents and I can be proud. Reaching out his tiny hands, Arthur gently grabs the beautiful, multicolored egg wrapped inside Sylvia's wing feather. Sylvia's message delivers its final instructions. When your mana core is past the white stage, you will hear from me once more. At that time, I will explain everything. So until then, I bid you farewell. And right before her voice fades away completely, she utters 2 final words that completely shock Arthur. King Grey. Arthur freezes in total horror and disbelief, questions flooding his mind. How long had she known my identity? How did she even know? Taking a deep breath, Arthur collects his thoughts. Questions continued to pester me long after Sylvia's voice disappeared. One thing was clear though, if I focused only on training for the sake of revenge, this life would hardly be different from my last one. For now, I can only move forward, but first, where the hell am I? Taking a firm stance, Arthur channels his mana, executing a rapid dash through the lush, giant foliage and scaling high up into the massive trees. Looking out over the endless canopy, Art observes, even with mana, my vision is restricted, but one thing is clear. I was deep within the Elshire forest. Even just barely being able to use the mana rotation that Sylvia taught me, I'm able to use magic for a lot longer. Still, I can't help but wonder how I ended up here. Sylvia said that I would arrive near other humans. No matter, I'll just keep looking around. I'm getting pretty good at this tree-traveling business. Forget walking, at 4 years old, Arthur has officially unlocked monkey mode. Suddenly, a sharp, terrified scream echoes across the woods. Arthur's ears perk up instantly. That sounded like a human. Dashing directly toward the noise, Art moves from branch to branch, hoping to find a way out. Nearing a stationary carriage hidden below, Arthur drops down to a lower, concealed branch and sits silently, using his enhanced hearing to spy on the group gathered underneath. Two sleazy men are talking to their leader near the carriage. The first one grins maliciously. "Hey boss, elf girls go for a lot, don't they?" The second scum adds, "She's a child too, so a virgin at that, she'll definitely fetch us a lot." The boss scowls, barking orders, "Shut up and put her back in the carriage already. We need to move. We're only a few days away from leaving this damned forest." Sitting silently on the branch above, Arthur's eyes darken as a look of pure fury washes over his face. Slave traders. Looking down at the beasts pulling the carriage, Arthur quickly analyzes his situation. I had no idea how those pigs managed to get their hands on forest hounds, but I knew that getting one of them would be my best bet out of this forest. As for those slave traders, well, with all the crap that happened to me lately, it looked like I'd finally be able to let off some steam. Moving stealthily through the canopy, Arthur maintains his position. Despite my eagerness to get home, I still needed a plan. Dealing with those slave traders first was the best course of action, but I didn't strike immediately. Attacking all 4 of them head-on would be suicide even for me, so I followed, waited, and gathered strength to make my move when their guards were down. It's time to create a distraction. Art grabs a wild fruit and hurls it into the brush. Even at 4 years old, Bro is already using video game stealth tactics. The distraction agitates the forest hounds. Hearing the sudden commotion, the slave traders yell out, "Shut 'em up before they wake up everything in the forest." The designated guard groans, walking toward the beasts. Okay, damn mutts." Observing the lone guard approaching the hounds, Arthur prepares his opening move. Without a weapon, I was forced to utilize a technique from my previous life. A technique I wasn't even sure would work in this world. The guard walks up to the snorting beasts, completely oblivious. "You should just chew each other's antlers if you're that bored." Arthur drops silently from the tree right behind him. Before the guard can even process the movement, Art executes a lightning-fast strike, slicing through him with lethal precision. The guard dies standing up, unable to even flinch. Stripping the corpse, Arthur equips the guard's clothes and grabs his sword. Staring down with cold blue eyes, Art thinks, "Thank you for the weapon." Arthur steps back into the shadows as the ravenous forest hounds devour the dead trader's body. Back at the camp, the second trader grows impatient. The hounds are quiet now. What's taking him so long to come back? Walking toward the doorway, he spots a shadow in the dark. "You taking a piss or something, Pink?" Before he can finish his sentence, Arthur appears behind him like a ghost and cuts his life short in a single flash. Stepping over the second body, Arthur catches his breath, internally reflecting. As expected, fighting is a lot harder and tiresome in this body. I should finish this quickly while the last 2 are still asleep. Suddenly, muffled, frantic noises echo from inside the carriage. "Is Shaman there?" Arthur winces, gritting his teeth. "Damn it, why now?" The noise instantly alerts the remaining 2 traders. The leader shouts, "Why are you baying so noisy? Where are you, Pinky, Deuce?" As Arthur dashes to take cover, the bald trader spots his movement and lunges. Art dodges gracefully and delivers a double slice straight across both of the bald trader's feet. Coldly counting his kills, Art notes, 3 down. The bald trader screams in agonizing pain, alerting the 4th trader, Danton. Crawling backward, the bald man desperately screams, "Careful, Danton, the brat is a mage." Danton stops in his tracks, staring down at the tiny kid holding a blade. "A kid mage, huh?" Dropping his heavy sword to the ground, Danton smirks greedily. "Then we don't want to accidentally kill the golden egg that just landed in front of us. Now do we? He might even fetch us more than the little elf." Yeah, calling Arthur a golden egg was officially the worst financial decision of this man's life. In a split second, Danton rushes forward so fast Arthur barely tracks him, appearing directly behind him. Don't die, kid. Shocked by the speed, Arthur barely dodges the incoming strike. Reaching into his pouch, Art hurls a heavy stone directly into Danton's face, leaving a visible mark. Enraged, Danton lunges again, but Arthur throws his knife attached to a condensed mana string. Danton sneers, "You have some cute tricks." Slicing the mana string, Danton catches the knife midair and hurls it straight back. "Here's your weapon, catch it." Danton closes the gap faster than Arthur's young body can process, delivering a brutal kick straight into Art's stomach. The impact sends Arthur flying backward onto the dirt. Walking up slowly, Danton reaches out his massive hand with a sick grin. "Come here, my bag of gold." Famous last words. Grabbing Arthur by the leg, he pins him down. "Just give up. You can't do anything with your little body." Pinned to the ground, Arthur's mind races at high speed. Condensing mana like a blade seems to behave similarly to wind magic in this world. If that's the case, fire magic should be too. Talk about inventing battlefield magic experiments under pure pressure. Focusing every ounce of his mana into his hand, Arthur triggers an explosive point-blank blast directly against Danton's arm. Danton stands frozen in absolute shock as Arthur doesn't stop, unleashing a powerful blast of fire that completely engulfs the traitor's arm. Danton staggers backward, clutching his charred arm in sheer agony. "You son of a, you're dead, brat. I don't care if I have to sell your corpse. You're dead." Before he can finish, Arthur glides through the smoke and slices straight across Danton's neck. Danton collapses to the ground, dead before he hits the dirt. Now only the injured bald traitor remains cowering on the ground, begging for his life. "Wait, please, don't." Arthur looks down at him with dead, unforgiving eyes, echoing the harsh reality of their sins. I'm sure the little girl said the same thing. With the camp completely cleared, Arthur walks up to the back of the carriage, opening the door to reveal the terrified, trembling elf child inside. Softening his voice, Arthur gently offers, "Come on, it's safe now, you can go back home now." Looking at her young savior standing in the moonlight, tears stream down the little elf girl's face. We pick up right after Arthur opens the carriage door. Before bringing the young elf outside, Art gently places a cloth over her eyes to shield her from the brutal scene. Confused, the little girl asks, "What's this for?" Arthur responds softly, "There are things here little kids are better off not seeing." She pouts instantly, "But you're also a little." Before she can finish calling out his age, Art cuts her off, guiding her away. "Let's go, and don't take the cloth off until I say." After walking a good distance away from the bloody scene, Arthur finally takes off the blindfold. "We should be a good enough distance away, you can look now." The little elf girl blinks, looking around at the quiet forest and softly thanks him. Then in classic Arthur fashion, our MC dusts off his hands, assuming his job is done. "Okay, nice meeting you, goodbye." He turns around and begins walking away. The little girl stands there completely stunned. Desperate, she leaps forward, grabbing onto his clothes, her face contorting into a hilarious, dramatic mix of panic and anger. "How can you abandon such a cute little girl in the woods, you pieces of trash? I'm scared, don't leave me." Arthur groans, forcefully trying to pry her hands off his outfit. "Look, I need to get home too. Those bad guys won't chase you anymore. Besides, aren't elves generally safe in this forest anyway?" Refusing to let go, she argues back, "Beasts are only scared of adults. My parents said that kids will get eaten by hounds or tree golems." Realizing he can't just leave a helpless kid behind, Arthur sighs in defeat. "Okay, well, do you at least know how long it'll take to get to where you live from here?" She stares back and says, "I don't know." Arthur's face instantly drops into pure, unadulterated deadpan disbelief. Trying to keep his composure, Art says, "Just stay here." Her face instantly panics, thinking he's ditching her again, but Art quickly clarifies, "I'll go gather some supplies for us. Hopefully the trip won't be too long." Relief washes over her face as she beams, "Okay." While gathering supplies, Arthur internally plans ahead. "I salvaged what I could for the journey ahead. Neither of us knew how long it'd take, and I also had to think about the journey back. It's a shame we can't take the carriage, but it might be for the best. We'd stick out like sore thumbs riding in that. I can only hope that the elves have something that can take me back to the human kingdom." Returning to camp, Art hands her a bundle of clothes. "Here, I found these clothes inside the carriage and assumed they were yours. Wear the cloak over them since it'll probably get cold." She thanks him warmly, and Arthur gives her a reassuring pat before saying, "Let's get you back home." The next morning, the two set off in the vague direction she points to. As they walk through the lush canopy, Arthur decides to break the ice. "What's your name?" She smiles brightly. Tesha Iralith." She asks, "What's your?" It's Arthur Leywin. Tesha tilts her head curiously. How'd you end up in the Elshire Forest, Arthur? Arthur winces slightly. It's a long story. Tesha grins, skipping along. We have time. Art decides to keep it simple. Let's just say I got separated from my family. Oh, so you came from the human kingdom, right? Tesha asks. Arthur gives her a look like, yeah, obviously, bro. Then out of nowhere, Tesha looks at him with dead seriousness and asks, then is it true that all male humans are perverts and have more than one wife? Arthur stops dead in his tracks, his brain completely short-circuiting. What? Who told you that? Tesha answers innocently, my grandpa. Thanks, grandpa. Now Arthur has to spend his afternoon debunking centuries of elf propaganda to a 4-year-old. Arthur facepalms at the sheer ridiculousness. I see. Well, I'm sure there are perverts among elves too. Wait, do you even know what pervert means? Tesha blinks, not really. Arthur sighs, trying to explain adult concepts to a child. Well, to answer your question, usually only some nobles prefer to have multiple wives. Tesha claps her hands. Oh, now I get it. Art sweat drops. Do you really? Anyway, let me ask you a question. What's it like living in a Lenoir? Tesha beams with excitement. It's fun. I spend a lot of time with my caretakers and grandpa since my mom and dad are busy, and once I awaken, I'll probably be given a mentor to train under. I'm pretty excited about that. Arthur takes note of this lore detail. The education system seems a bit more undiscriminating in a Lenoir if everyone's assigned a private mentor upon awakening. Tesha's voice suddenly turns hesitant as she looks down. What happened to those bad guys that took me? Arthur keeps his tone smooth and reassuring. They ran into a rather unfortunate accident. Tesha whispers fearfully, will they try to come find me again? Arthur stops, looking into her eyes with pure sincerity. I promise that you won't ever see them again. Relief fills her heart as she looks up at him. Thank you, Arthur, for everything. As night falls, Arthur sets up a small camp for them. Handing her a blanket, Art says, you should get some sleep. Tesha blinks, clutching the blanket. What about you? I'll keep guard outside, Arthur replies, stepping toward the tent entrance. Sitting outside in the quiet night, Arthur looks at his hands, reflecting on his power. I wanted to use this time to figure out what this will Sylvia left me was, but... Before he can begin meditating, Tesha pokes her tiny head out from the tent, blushing slightly. Are you sure you don't need some rest too? Grandpa said to never share a bed with a boy, but I won't tell on you. Arthur gives her an amused look. It's okay, I'm not that sleepy. Tesha pouts, trying to come up with a clever reason to keep him close. Well, you see, I just remembered. Beasts will more likely appear if they notice you out here because they'll see that you're a kid. Therefore, I propose that for our safety you should keep guard inside the tent. Arthur smirks at her blatant excuses. It's for our safety. Tesha quickly adds, not because I'm scared. Art gives a warm response. Yeah, I got it, now sleep. Stepping inside the tent, Arthur sits down while Tesha curls up under the blanket. Still feeling a little nervous, she reaches out her tiny hand and clings tightly onto Arthur's shirt before finally drifting off to sleep. Looking down at the sleeping elf princess, Arthur's expression softens with deep empathy. Tesha Iralith, you've had it rough, rest well. We pick up the next morning as Arthur and Tesha press deeper through the dense green mist of Elshire Forest. Reflecting on their dynamic, Arthur narrates, we continued our journey with unfamiliar surroundings and time quickly passing as the only indicators of our progress. After Tesha's initial desperation and fears had passed, it was obvious she had no idea how to interact with me. I'd admit that worries of my family and impatience to get back home didn't leave me in the best of moods. As evening approaches, the duo decides to set up camp. But just as Arthur begins unpacking, a sudden blinding pang of pain shoots directly through his chest. Art clutches his monocore, gasping for air. He internally grits his teeth. But what made the journey almost unbearable were the agonizing pains coming from my monocore that struck unpredictably. Noticing his sudden collapse, Tesha rushes over, her eyes wide with worry. Arthur, is everything okay? Forcing a faint smile to hide his condition, Art pants softly. Yeah, I'm fine. But even as night falls and Tesha sleeps, Arthur lies awake in the tent, silently enduring the intense, burning pain inside his chest. The next morning they resume their trek, but Tesha keeps casting anxious glances toward her young protector. Suddenly, rustling leaves surround them. A pack of hungry forest wolves emerges from the shadows, snarling at the two children. Before Tesha can panic, Arthur steps in front of her. With a cold, badass glare, he flares a concentrated burst of intense mana pressure. The sheer aura radiates off Art like an apex predator, terrifying the wolves so badly they tuck their tails and sprint away in fear. Bro handled a whole pack with just a look. However, channeling that mana triggers another brutal spasm in his chest. Ducking behind a thick tree trunk so Tesha won't see, Arthur clutches his chest, sweating profusely. Damn, it's coming more frequently now, should I tell her? No, she'd only worry. As more days pass, the indistinguishable trees finally start looking familiar to Tesha, but their pace slows down drastically as her young body tires from constant hiking. Seeing her exhausted, Arthur steps up like a true gentleman and takes her heavy luggage onto his own back. As for me, despite strengthening my body with mana, the pains continued to grow and it had become harder to hide them from the worried elf. When Tesha notices him wincing again, she panics. Arthur, are you okay? Desperate to cover up his mana core condition, Art comes up with the most ridiculous excuse on the spot, claiming he's just holding in extreme pressure because he really needs to use the bathroom. That night at the campfire, Tesha fidgets nervously with her cloak before looking up at him. So I've been thinking, since we've gotten to be close friends, can I call you Art like how your family does? Arthur responds casually, I don't mind. Tesha pouts, clearly wanting a bigger reaction. Arthur was expecting a simple nickname, not a full emotional ceremony. Seeing her reaction, Arthur's eyes suddenly sparkle with over-the-top theatrical drama as he bows like a medieval courtier. I'd be most honored that Tesha Iralith may refer to this humble countryside boy by Art. Tesha's face contorts in pure annoyance at his dramatic performance. There you go, talking all weird again like some old man. Arthur smirks playfully, firing right back. Better than being a crybaby that can't even pee by herself without me nearby with my eyes closed and ears shut. Flustered and completely red-faced from embarrassment, Tesha immediately reaches over and pulls Arthur's cheeks, yelling at him to shut up. Sometime later, Tesha points toward the dense fog, shouting, I think I see something. Arthur squints, teasing her with deadpan sarcasm. Yes, I see something too. I see moss and leaves and fog and trees, lots and lots of trees. Despite his sarcastic remarks, the scene shifts to them sharing a meal, where Tesha can't help laughing because Arthur managed to get food stuck all over his face. Looking at her bright smile, Arthur warmly reflects. It seemed that despite the mental age gap, we had gotten closer. Suddenly, Tesha starts running ahead, tapping individual giant trees along the path. Reaching one specific massive tree, her long elf ears literally flap with pure excitement. Confused by her sudden celebration, Arthur calls out, Tesha. Turning around with a beaming smile, Tesha declares, we're here. Pressing her hand against the bark, the massive ancient tree begins to glow with a brilliant, shimmering green light. A majestic elemental portal slowly opens right before their eyes. Turning back to her savior with excitement, Tesha waves her hand. Come on, Art. Tumbling through the portal rift, Arthur hits the ground with a hard thud, gritting his teeth. I hate these teleportation gates. Tesha turns back to him with a bright smile, announcing that they've finally made it. Standing up and looking around, Arthur is instantly blown away by the surroundings. Pristine fountains, breathtaking nature-infused infrastructure, and bustling crowds of elves. Art marvels internally. Pristine, that was the only word that came to mind. And even that didn't do the scene in front of me justice. Suddenly, footsteps approach them through the fog. Instinctively, Arthur and Tesha become alert, preparing themselves for whatever is approaching. But out steps a squad of elven royal guards who immediately drop to their knees in unison. We welcome back the royal princess. Arthur stands there completely short-circuited. Who? Where? Here? Turning to Tesha in total confusion, he asks. You? Tesha gives him a sheepish nod. Yep, his little traveling buddy is literal royalty. Before Arthur can process the revelation, a guard speaks up. Princess, we arrived as soon as we noticed the royal teleportation gate had been used. The king and queen are. My baby, Tesha, you're okay. Interrupting the guard, two figures rush in with pure desperation, King Alduin Iralith and Queen Muriel Iralith. Beside them stands a legendary old elf, Virion Iralith. Arthur recognizes him immediately. Virion Iralith, a name noted in every history book, the former king of Elenwar who led the last war against the humans of the Sapin Kingdom. Noticing former King Virion pass a soft smile toward Tesha, Arthur gently nudges her forward into her parents' arms. Seeing Tesha finally reunited in her parents' embrace, Art feels a quiet pang of longing. I wonder if mother and father will react like this when they see me. King Alduin turns to Arthur, his expression shifting to deep sincerity. Thank you, child, not just as the king of Elenwar but as this little one's father. As a small gesture of gratitude for helping Tesha arrive home safely, please accompany us to our home. You can get some rest and after, please tell us what happened. Arthur reads between the lines instantly. His tone is gentle, but his eyes show that this isn't an offer, it's an order. Bowing respectfully, Art replies, I'm honored. Tesha immediately grabs his hand, pulling him along with excitement. Let's go, there's a lot I want you to see. Walking into the royal castle, Arthur can't help but critique the lavish aesthetic. I somewhat expected an impressive castle after learning that Tess was a princess, but what sort of corny novel did I wind up inside? Queen Muriel turns to the castle servants. This child is our guest. Please get him washed up and into a room to rest. Arthur politely steps forward. Thank you, but I would like to explain what happened first. Moments later, they assemble in a grand council chamber with guards. King Alduin, Queen Muriel, former King Virion, Tesha, and Arthur present around the room. Art takes the lead with a formal greeting. My name is Arthur Leywin, from a humble town in the Kingdom of Sapin. It is an honor to be in the presence of the royal family. He notes internally, a little over the top for an introduction, but discussion isn't going to progress if they treat me like a child. King Alduin leans back, impressed. Despite you claiming to be from humble origins, you seem rather mature and well-educated, Arthur Leywin. Very well, I'd like to hear what happened. Arthur begins explaining his journey, using a careful half-truth about getting separated from his family after running into bandits. But the moment his story reaches the part where he found Tesha, the atmosphere in the room completely freezes. King Alduin slams his fist onto the heavy table, eyes blazing with anger. Slave traders, I should have known it was humans. Without flinching, Arthur looks the king dead in the eye. Without disrespect, slave trading is a profession, not a race, King Alduin. Insulted by a human child talking back to their ruler, the royal guards instantly unsheathe their weapons, pointing their blades directly at Arthur. But before things escalate, former King Virion raises a hand, silencing the guards with an overwhelming pressure. Virion leans forward, his sharp eyes locking onto Art. So you saw these slave traders take my granddaughter and you, as a child, what? Negotiated with them, begged them for mercy. Arthur holds his ground with absolute composure. No, Elder Virion. While I am a child, I am also a mage. I eliminated the slave traders and rescued your granddaughter. A royal guard flares his mana into his blade, shouting in disbelief. How dare you spout such lies in front of? The guard cuts off mid-sentence as Elder Virion glares back at him with terrifying, red-glowing eyes, forcing the guard into silence. Standing up from his seat, Arthur concludes the meeting on his own terms. Regardless of whether anyone believes me, Princess Tesha has been returned safely. All I wish for now is to return back to my family in Sapin. Imagine telling an entire royal court exactly what you want at 4 years old. Hearing him ask to leave immediately, Tesha gasps in utter shock. You're going to leave already, Art? Arthur keeps his tone practical. Knowing history, I don't think it's appropriate for a human to be inside this kingdom for too long, Princess. Besides, my priority is to make sure my family is safe and let them know that I'm okay as well. King Alduin speaks up, addressing the young boy with respect. Regardless of our two kingdoms' past, you have saved our daughter and taken the trouble to accompany her all the way back to us, which entitles you to a befitting reward. Unfortunately, the teleportation gate linked with Sapin Kingdom is only accessible once every 7 years during the summit conference between the 3 races. It'll be another 5 years until the gate will open. 5 years, that's a massive plot twist, but the king offers an alternative. However, we'd be happy to send a group of guards to escort you back home safely. I'd also like to extend our hospitality. Some of us are tolerant enough, but too many still hold grudges towards humans because of the war long ago. So for now, make yourself at home. We will have your escorts prepared by tomorrow morning. Arthur bows respectfully, thank you. Following the meeting, Arthur is led to a magnificent 5-star royal suite glowing with magical sparkles. Completely exhausted, Art strips off his travel-worn clothes and heads straight for a warm, relaxing bath, muttering, I'm too tired for this. But while soaking, that familiar, agonizing pang of pain strikes his mana core once again. After stepping out and drying off, Arthur sits quietly on the sofa, gently cradling Sylvia's mysterious egg in his hands. Looking down at it with a heavy heart, he softly sighs. I don't know what to do, Sylvia. I wish you were here to help me. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the door. Arthur calls out that he's coming, but the second he swings the door open, Tesha instantly charges forward and bumps her head straight into his stomach. She pouts angrily. Dummy, first you talk all coldly to my family and then you're going back already. Arthur rubs his stomach, defending himself. I wasn't being cold, Tess. I was being respectful because, you know, they're the king and queen of this entire kingdom. Then Art squints at her, bringing up the huge detail she hid from him. Why didn't you tell me? Tesha just sticks her tongue out with a playful tee-hee face. Arthur gets instantly annoyed. Don't tee-hee me. Her cheerful demeanor softens into a hesitant whisper. Still, I don't want you to leave. You're the first friend I have. Seeing her get emotional, Arthur smiles and breaks the tension. Come on, crybaby princess, show me around the castle. Tesha enthusiastically leads Art through the royal grounds, eventually arriving at a breathtaking royal garden. She beams proudly. This is probably my favorite place in the castle. If you stayed here until spring, you could see all of the flowers bloom here. At least you're able to see the globies harvesting. Cupping a glowing, shimmering insect in her hands, she turns to him. Look, it's pretty, right? Arthur steps closer to check it out, but suddenly his hyper-trained instincts flare. A sharp projectile comes flying through the air straight toward them. Reacting in a split second, Art pulls Tesha out of harm's way and catches the incoming sting right out of the air. Before he can even breathe, a figure dashes out of the shadows, throwing a heavy fist directly at Arthur's head. Art instantly catches the incoming punch with both hands, stopping the strike. Looking up, he realizes his attacker is none other than the legendary former king, Elder Virion Iralith. Arthur shouts in total disbelief, "What the hell, did you just try to kill your own granddaughter?" Virion smirks casually. "It might have left her a small welt, but I doubt that toy you're holding could kill anyone." Looking down at the sting in his hand, Arthur realizes, "I was tricked." Virion chuckles, examining the young boy. "Great reaction and instincts, though. To think you'd catch my little present and use it against me. Your mana usage is mediocre at best, but I can see how you were able to kill a few slave traders." Arthur deadpans internally. This old man has a lost screw. Tesha immediately steps between them, waving her arms. "Grandpa, stop teasing Art." Virion raises an eyebrow. "Tease? You should know why I came here." Arthur looks between the two of them, confused. Why did he come? Virion steps forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's been a while since I've met someone interesting." Reaching into his robe, Virion tosses a wooden practice sword straight at Arthur. Art catches it effortlessly as the legendary war hero takes his stance. "Let's see what you're made of, brat." The second Arthur catches the wooden sword, he doesn't hesitate for even a single second. He immediately lunges forward, striking straight at Elder Virion. Most 4-year-olds would probably run away from the former king. Arthur's first thought? Yeah, let's fight him. Tesha's eyes widen in pure shock as she watches Art instantly go on the offensive against her grandfather. Virion casually sidesteps the sudden blow, smirking at the young boy. "Scary little brat." Arthur doesn't slow down, immediately swinging his sword in a fast, relentless barrage of strikes, but Elder Virion's speed is in a complete league of its own. He smoothly dodges every single attack without breaking a sweat. Spotting an opening, Virion thrusts his weapon toward Arthur's neck. Art manages to react just in time, placing his wooden blade between them to parry the strike. But because he's still in a 4-year-old body, the sheer force of Virion's strike heavy presses down on him. Before Art can adjust, Virion throws a fast second fist straight toward him. Reacting purely on survival instinct, Art dodges the punch and uses his elbow to push off, creating distance between them. Rushing forward once again, Arthur tries to close the gap, but Virion continues to dodge his every move effortlessly. Art internally pushes himself to the limit. "Even with mana and minimizing my movements, I can't keep up with him." In a flash, Virion slips behind Arthur, moving so quickly that Art can barely track him. But instead of panicking, Art realizes this is his only chance. Springing backward into a rolling spin kick, Arthur manages to clip Elder Virion right on the forehead. The surprise impact knocks the legendary war hero off balance, sending him rolling across the floor. Tesha gasps in worry, running over toward Arthur just as her grandfather pushes himself up off the ground, laughing lightheartedly. "It seems like I deserve this for being arrogant, but to think you'd actually be able to land a hit." Tesha pouts angrily at her grandfather, stepping over to pinch his arm. "I think you've bullied Art enough, Grandpa. You should have gone easier on him." Virion rubs his arm, chuckling. "I'm afraid that if I'd gone easier on him, he'd be the one bullying me." Arthur bows his head politely. "I'm honored the esteemed Elder Virion thinks so highly of me." Virion raises an eyebrow, his expression suddenly turning dead serious. "Honored, is it?" Arthur gets instantly nervous internally. What's with this sudden change in mood? Virion looks Arthur dead in the eye and drops a massive proposal. "If that's the case, become my disciple." Arthur came here looking for a way home and somehow unlocked a legendary master instead. Tesha just stands there with a completely confused look on her face. A short while later, while Tesha pulls out her personal first aid kit to patch up her grandfather's minor scratches, the discussion continues. Virion looks over at Art. "So do you agree?" Arthur makes a hilarious, skeptical face. "You are actually serious?" Virion smirks. "Why wouldn't I be?" Arthur lays out the harsh political reality. "Well, first of all, I'm a human. Is it even allowed for humans to stay in this kingdom?" Virion responds with absolute authority. "No one will dare try and kick you out while you're under my tutelage. I know you realize that you're already better than other kids, hell, even some adults. But just know that I can teach you something even the most capable mages back in Sapin can't." Arthur hesitates, thinking of his parents. Even if you say that, I can't. Not when I don't even know how are my parents, who don't even know whether I'm dead or alive. Virion offers a reassuring solution. If there was a way for you to see how they're doing and communicate with them to let them know you're okay, is that not enough? Arthur's eyes light up. What do you mean? Before Art can finish his sentence, Virion holds up a hand to stop him, noticing that little Tesha is rubbing her eyes, completely exhausted. Calling over a castle maid, Virion instructs her to get Tesha washed up and put her into bed. Once they are alone, Virion's tone turns deeply serious. I realize I'm being rather impatient, but it has to do with what I sensed earlier during our little spar. You've been having bouts of searing pain where your mana core is, right? And those bouts are coming more frequently. Arthur stands there completely stunned. How do you know that? Virion sighs heavily. More than how I knew, it's the fact that you're not aware of the reason for your pains that's a problem. Do you not know what a beast will is? Arthur's mind freezes as the term registers. Beast will. It was a term I had never heard before, but I immediately thought back to when Sylvia struck me at my core. Virion explains the core mechanics of world magic. I'm sure you know or have even encountered a few mana beasts already. But a beast powerful enough to be categorized as Class A or higher gains the ability to pass on their will or inherent ability down once, either to their offspring or a person they're bound to. I won't pry as to how you stumbled upon such a powerful beast will, but at this stage the power residing within you is doing more harm than good. Arthur looks up in realization. The fact that you know all of this. Do you have a beast will too? Virion smiles faintly. Yes, I am what is called a beast tamer. A title that you can obtain once you've fully conquered the monstrous beast will inside of you. Looking at the restless power of the beast will inside Arthur's core, Virion gives him a stark warning. I know how important it is to go back to your family, but doing so right now comes at a grave risk. The power from your beast will is too potent for your immature body to handle. If not controlled soon, the power you've obtained will destroy your body from the inside out. The next morning, Arthur wakes up trapped in a suffocating nightmare. A dark, terrifying shadow figure sits directly on his chest, heavy pressing down on his lungs. Arthur internally struggles. What is this heavy sensation pressing down on my body? Is this monster the personification of my worries, my burdens, the expectations placed on me, haunting me even in my sleep? Suddenly, the scene shifts to reality. It turns out there is no shadow monster, it's just Tesha sitting directly on Arthur's chest, beaming with a bright smile. Good morning, Art, wakey wakey. Arthur makes a funny, defeated face, trying to turn away. Not now, shadow monster, 5 more minutes. Tesha pouts indignantly. Who are you calling a monster? Looking closely at Arthur's messy bedhead, Tesha giggles. Your hair looks funny. Arthur retorts instantly. You're one to talk, Mini Medusa. Tesha bounces with excitement. Hey, is it true you're going to stay here? Grandpa told me this morning that you are. Arthur keeps it cautious. Maybe, we'll know for sure after the trip with Elder Virion, Princess. Annoyed by the formal title, Tesha pinches Arthur's cheek with a pout. Not Princess, call me Tess. I'm going to get angry if you keep doing that. Arthur surrenders. Okay, now let me shower and get ready. Unless you want to watch, I suggest you leave the room, Tess. Tesha makes a disgusted, grossed-out face. How perverted, Grandpa was right. Arthur yells as she runs out. Stop using words you barely know. Stepping out into the castle hallway, Arthur overhears a tense debate between King Alduin, Queen Muriel, and Elder Virion. King Alduin pleads desperately. Father, please, you know it's not appropriate for a human to be residing within this kingdom. Queen Muriel agrees. Alduin is right, Elder Virion. I'll always be grateful to the boy for saving Tesha, but allowing a human to stay here goes against all traditions. Elder Virion waves off their concerns with casual authority. I've taken a liking to the brat. There's no need to say more. Besides, your daughter seems to approve of my decision as well. Tesha nods in total approval and determination right beside her grandfather. King Alduin stammers, Father, I ask that you reconsider. Virion shuts down the discussion instantly with an overwhelming aura. Enough, he will be under my direct guidance. Make sure everyone in the kingdom knows that. Watching from around the corner, Arthur smiles to himself, thinking, looks like the elder really can be trusted. Noticing Arthur standing in the corridor, Virion calls out, You're late, brat, we should hurry. As they begin their journey out into the rural countryside, Arthur asks casually, So how much longer do we have left to go, Gramps? Virion chuckles, Gramps, well, aren't you awfully comfortable with me now? Arthur smirks back, well, we'll have to see how today goes with your mysterious friend. Virion looks over at Tesha, who has already fallen fast asleep on the journey, and his voice softens. She woke up so early today, bugging me about you. Being the only princess of this kingdom caused her to grow up in a lonely environment. She's been hurt too many times by both adults and even children pretending to be her friend. Eventually, she grew cold and distant, building a wall constantly around herself. In the short time that I've seen her with you, she has shown me more smiles and laughs than she has in the last few years. For that, thank you. Arthur stands there completely stunned, taking in the deep emotional weight of Tesha's past. Arriving at a secluded rustic cottage in a rural area, Tesha wakes up, rubbing her eyes. Are we here? Arthur looks at the humble house, wondering internally. I wonder who this mysterious friend is to make the former king come all the way to this rural area. Without knocking, Virion kicks the front door wide open, shouting, "We're here, you old witch, come out." An elderly woman steps out from the shadows, yelling back in anger, "My ears still work perfectly, you grouch." Virion introduces her. Arthur, this is Rinia Darkasson, an old friend and a very special deviant that can help you. Arthur bows respectfully. A pleasure to meet you, Elder Rinia. Rinia says to Virion, well, we haven't got all day now. Stop standing outside and come in. Entering the house, Arthur processes the revelation internally. Being a deviant means she's similar to my mother, whose magic doesn't fall into the categories of the 4 basic elements. I wonder how she'll be able to help. Turning to Elder Rinia, Arthur speaks up. My apologies for sounding impatient, but Gramps said your magic can help me reach my parents. Rinia smirks at Virion. Gramps, I see you have a soft spot for the boy Virion. Now she says to Arthur, boy, I am what is called a diviner. Magic of this nature varies from mage to mage, but I'm quite capable. This means that there's very little someone can hide from me if I so choose to pry. For example, I know that you're special. So special, in fact, that there are parts of your life that even I can't see, but these eyes have seen pieces of both your past and future. Arthur is visibly shaken by her insight, but Rinia gently shifts focus. But you're not here for my clairvoyant abilities. You're here to see your parents and to let them know you're alive, right? Arthur nods intently. Right. Rinia points toward a bowl on the table. Then lean forward and keep your eyes on the basin of water. Focus on the image of your parents as clearly and detailed as possible. Once you're able to see them in the water, you'll be able to speak to them. Leaning over the basin, Arthur closes his eyes, visualizing his parents with vivid clarity. He pictures his mother with her glowing auburn hair and sun-kissed complexion radiating gentle warmth, her thin brows always knitted together, worrying about him. Then he pictures his father, with his strong blue gaze and goofy smile that brightens even the dullest days. His silly quips at home severely at odds with his charisma as a leader. Arthur prays internally, please be alive. Slowly opening his eyes, Arthur looks into the basin, and the moment he sees what's waiting for him, his entire expression changes. The scene opens in the Leywin household, where Arthur's mother, Alice, brings a steaming bowl of stew over to the table, telling Reynolds to dig in and eat up. Reynolds looks up, pleasantly surprised. Wow, this beef stew looks amazing, Alice. What's the special occasion? Alice looks down gently. Nothing like that. It's just been a while since I've cooked for you after moving here. Her expression softens with a heavy, sorrowful look in her eyes as she murmurs softly, this used to be yours and Arthur's favorite dish. Not quite catching her whisper, Reynolds asks, what was that, honey? Alice quickly brushes it off. It's nothing. As the two sit together at the table in quiet grief, a familiar voice suddenly echoes inside both of their minds. Hi, Mom, hi, Dad. Both Alice and Reynolds freeze in absolute total shock. The voice continues, it's me, your son, Arthur. Reynolds is so stunned that the wooden spoon in his hand slips right out of his fingers, clattering onto the floor. Arthur's voice resonates clearly through the mental connection. You're probably really surprised that you're hearing my voice inside your head, huh? I'll explain all that later, but for now I just want you to know, I'm alive and safe. I managed to survive the fall off of the cliff just barely. Hearing their son's voice after so much agony, tears immediately begin to well up in Alice and Reynolds' eyes. Arthur continues his message. This should be kept a secret, but I'm currently staying in the kingdom of Alenwar with the elves. I know it must have been hard. It's been hard for me too, but I'm glad you're both okay. I hope you guys don't blame each other for what happened. I'm proud of what I did back then, and if I could go back in time, I'd do it again, even if it meant I would die. Arthur's voice softens as he explains his current situation. I wish I could go to you guys, but that might be a little hard right now. It seems I have a sort of illness that I need to get treated. I'm not in any danger, but I need to get treated before I head back home. He gives them a quick reassurance about how this magical connection is even possible. I'm not sure when the next time I can reach out like this will be. There is a mage here that's a deviant like you, Mom. She's the one that's allowing you guys to be able to hear my voice. Shifting to a light-hearted, playful tone to ease his father's heart, Art adds, Dad, I'll keep practicing magic and fighting while I'm here recovering. Don't be surprised if I can beat you in a match the next time we meet. Until then, keep mom and the baby safe." At those words, both Alice and Reynolds break down, crying uncontrollable tears of pure joy and overwhelming relief. The immense weight of guilt and heartbreak they carried for months completely lifts off their shoulders. Overwhelmed by emotion, Alice springs up from her seat and rushes into Reynolds' arms, hugging him tightly as they weep together. Arthur finishes his message with deep affection. "Mom, Dad, I love you both. Take care until I get back." Back inside Elder Rinia's cottage, Arthur slowly pulls away from the basin of water. Tears stream down his own cheeks as he wipes them away, his heart finally at peace. Turning around to face Elder Virion, Art's tear-stained face hardens with sharp, glaring eyes filled with absolute determination. "I'm ready." Returning to the castle entrance, Elder Virion and Tesha walk straight inside, but King Alduin and Queen Muriel step forward to stop Arthur. King Alduin speaks up with a humbled smile. "It seems that years of being a king has made me a bit old-fashioned and stubborn." Queen Muriel tries to explain what he means. What he's trying to say is, "We're sorry for earlier. Please accept our apology and consider this place your own." King Alduin adds warmly, "You are my daughter's savior and my father's very first disciple. Let me welcome you once again properly." Arthur smiles, shaking hands with the king. "Thank you for your generosity." Before they can even finish, Tesha pops up between them, looking up at her father. "If you're really sorry to Arthur, then let us play outside. I want to show him around the city." The king and queen exchange a funny, helpless glance, agreeing to let the kids go explore. A short while later, Arthur sits on the ground waiting for Tesha. She runs up beaming, "I am ready, let's go, Art." As they stroll through the bustling streets of the elf capital, Arthur accidentally bumps into a young elf child. The elf boy immediately gasps in disgust, dusting off his clothes. "Gross, I got human germs on me." Arthur makes a deadpan face, thinking, "What the hell?" The arrogant elf child sneers, "Just because Elder Virion favors you a bit, do you think you belong here?" His friends back him up from behind. "Yeah, go back to where you came from, monkey." Tesha pulls on Art's arm. "Come on, Art, let's just go." Watching the kid flex, Arthur thinks to himself, "This blatantly cliché side character. I kind of want to mess with him." The elf boy bows dramatically toward Tesha. "Princess, while I applaud your kindness, it is beneath your level to be with this human commoner. Allow me, Ferrith Ivsar III, to escort you." Hearing the name, Arthur pretends to be completely blown away, gasping sarcastically, "Ferrith, the Ferrith Ivasor, you mean that grass-type Pokemon that evolves into Venusaur?" Ferrith's ego practically shoots through the roof. "So even you've heard of my genius. Of course, awakening recently while I'm still so young is." Ferrith's face instantly drops as he realizes what Arthur just called him, snapping angrily, "Wait, what did you just call me? It's pronounced Ivsar, you ignorant fool, and I'm not some cartoon monster." Arthur deadpans back, "Ignorant indeed, my bad, I only keep up with the latest Pokemon meta." Tesha bursts out laughing. Sarcastic as ever, Arthur bows deeply. "I had no such clue that I was in the presence of such inspiring genius. This bug will remember to give you proper respect. Now, if you'll excuse us." As Art turns to leave, Ferrith steps in front of him, throwing his handkerchief down onto the cobblestones. "Stop, you think I didn't see through your sarcasm? For the pride of the Ivsar house, I challenge you to a duel." Arthur blinks. "What the actual bullshit is this?" Tesha steps in furiously. "How dare you initiate a duel with the disciple of Elder Virion? You may be of noble blood, but you should still know your place, Ferrith." Ferrith smirks evilly. "My apologies, princess, but my father has taught me to never let anyone trample on my pride. Human, accept this duel or retreat with your primate tail between your legs. Just know that your decision will reflect on your mentor as well." With no choice left, Tesha officiates the duel as a crowd gathers. Ferrith grips his practice weapon, clearly convinced he's about to teach this human child a lesson, shouting, "Prepare yourself, human named Arthur. This genius will show." Before he can even finish his sentence, Arthur closes the distance in the blink of an eye and appears directly in front of Ferrith. Art lands a clean, solid punch straight to the arrogant kid's face, dropping him flat onto the floor. Arthur stands over him thinking, "That's it, is this the self-proclaimed genius?" Tesha sighs internally, "I knew this was going to happen," before grabbing Art's hand, yelling, "Run." As they dash through the city streets, Arthur grins to himself. "I couldn't help but grow to appreciate this little princess more and more." While the rest of the day wasn't quite as fun as playing with Ferrith, it was refreshing and allowed me to get my mind off things. They spend the rest of the afternoon visiting local shops and the Grand Library, with Tesha using her terrifying princess glare to keep disrespectful merchants in line. Later that evening, as the two stand on a quiet bridge overlooking the glowing city lights, Tesha turns to Arthur. "Your training starts tomorrow, right? Are you nervous?" Arthur pauses, remembering Elder Virion's heavy warning. The assimilation process used by beast tamers has often been compared to submerging your body in boiling tar. You will be stuck here in this foreign land without the comfort of family. But if you can endure, the payoff will be enormous. Are you up for it, brat? Coming back to the present moment, Arthur looks out over the city with a calm, confident smile. I'm excited. I've come a long way to get to where I am now. The training and seeing my parents, I'm excited for all of that. I can't wait for what the future has in store for me. And that wraps up the full Season 1 recap. Now I need your help. Should I continue with Season 2 of this manhwa next, or should I move on to a different manhwa altogether? If you have any recommendations, drop them in the comments. I'm always looking for new series to break down. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep making these recaps for you. And don't forget to comment what you want to see next, Season 2, another manhwa, or your own recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.